Welcome to 2012, the movie. I have to say, I don't feel like 2012 was the year the world ended. It was more like 2016 or 2020, maybe they were off by a few years. Since then, at least, I'm dead inside. The movie starts with a random black dude whom I don't know the name of and will refer to as Glasses. I guess he's in India because they all have accents and it just looks like it. He's meeting some maid there because he has some mysterious activity going on. They go down an elevator to check out some super high-tech equipment where they observe the sun's eruptions, and he puts on his glasses, and now we know it's getting intense. The Indian man shows him his secret chamber where he has some boiling water. Ooh, scary. No, really, the water's boiling there because it's way too hot in Earth's core due to the sun microwaves heating up from the inside out. He goes to Washington, to the White House, where he meets some minister who's in charge of some important stuff and demands him, in front of everybody, to read this paper. The minister jokingly asks if it's a global crisis, looks at the paper, and Glasses has to meet the president ASAP because it turns out to really be a global crisis. We cut to 6 months later and the president is giving a speech to all the other presidents, telling them about the impending disaster and basically informing them that the world is going to end as we know it. We see a scene in China where they blow up the whole mountain and look for workers while evacuating all the others who are not able to work.
Many months later,
we see an Arab guy looking at his iPad, something that nobody can read, but the numbers is pretty clear. It indicates that they are selling tickets to save people, which is a bargain and only costs $1 billion euro. Are they not really consistent about the currency in this movie? The Arab guy tells the agent, I suppose that's a high price and he has a big family, but nonetheless, he's in with his whole family because why not spend all your money when you can't use it while you're dead? Still in the same year, we see the most overused film trope of all time, the Mona Lisa, getting swapped and saved because that's more important than saving lives, apparently. Those people talk some French, like oui, baguette, fromage. But they're really just talking about how nobody can tell the difference anyway. A year later in 2012, the movie finally really starts after about 50 minutes of just lore about the movie and some useless side information that is not important to the story. We see a news report about some mass suicide that happened. I don't know why it happened, but I guess going out on their own terms is better than dying any other way. With a smooth cut to some new guy who overslept, we vaguely see that he's a writer, which is apparently important for the movie. He was supposed to pick up his kids because they're going camping. I never went camping, but I think it has to be the most boring activity on this planet, especially going camping with his parents at this age. Yeah. Anyway, his car isn't working, so he has to get into his other work car, which is the limousine. He lies on the phone to his ex-wife, telling her that he's stuck in a traffic jam. While he's on his way there, we see that there's a huge crack in the street that hasn't been there before and a lot of people are surrounding it because they all want to have a look. He picks up his kids for the camping trip way too late and basically uses the trip to write his new book. I mean, it's just given that he definitely is not going to write his book. So he's an unsuccessful writer and has no bitches. Damn. We also get some uninteresting side information that the daughter is peeing her pants. I don't know why they had to put it in that movie because it really doesn't matter at all and doesn't change anything in the whole movie. I guess it's just for character depth or something. We learn that the new boyfriend of the mother is a plastic surgeon and has a lot of cash, so obviously he drives a Porsche. The movie cuts to a cruise ship with two old dudes who are, again, not important to the story and just there to add some character depth to Glasses, because that's his dad. They show us as the cruise ship is getting lifted and smashed into the walls of the dock, and they show us the waves. I mean, they aren't really that big, looking average to me, but I don't know much about waves anyway, so I'm just guessing here. At night, we cut to the two French-speaking people and the old dude is driving somewhere. Maybe the press conference they talked about, or maybe just home. Anyway, he tells her that he is being followed and that he knows what the government is hiding. And he thinks they want to kill him. Yeah, it turns out he was right. And the government wanted to kill him. But it's a movie, so he doesn't tell her because I think he wanted to protect her or something. He just dies without doing anything useful. The movie cuts back to our writer guy driving to Yellowstone National Park and singing with his daughter in the car while listening to a new radio station he just found, where the host is talking about the world ending and the government hiding it. Great thing to listen to while you have kids in the car, but I don't judge. You do you. While listening, we see helicopters flying over them. After that, in the president's office, we see Glasses and the other guy who didn't want to listen to him at first, whom I will call Fat Guy for now. They are talking about some plan Glasses made up with the information they collected in India 2 years ago. I mean, you can't base your whole plan on just some made up shit from 2 years ago with limited data and not reviewing it over time, but yeah, he didn't. And they have to act now because the Earth is starting to fall apart, way sooner than they expect. And Glasses wants to collect more data to be 100% sure about it. The president's daughter comes in, confronting her about the death of the French dude, and it turns out he was talking to her the whole time. Glasses and Fat Guy leave, and the president tells his daughter the truth about what's going on. Glasses confronts the Fat Guy about the death, and if you read between the lines of what he told him, yeah, you know they did it, because they didn't want the government to fall apart and riots to start all over the world. Back to the writer, still at Yellowstone, climbing over a fence that is for some reasons I don't understand not an electric one. They walk to the lake, or what used to be a lake, now it's just a big hot steamy puddle with dead animals gathered around. I'm not sure why, maybe it's sulfur in the air, which apparently doesn't affect the writer and his kids, but why not? No, it's just movie science. They're being spied on by a mysterious guy from a distance who's doing an audio log, and they get picked up by the US Army. Glasses talks to scientists about the rising temperatures in Earth's core, which are implausible, but I won't question it because it's a movie and anything is possible. They mentioned 27,000 degrees Celsius at 40,000 feet. I don't know why they don't use the metric systems consistently for both, but that's approximately 48,000 degrees Fahrenheit and about 12,000 meters. Just thinking about it, the Mariana Trench is 11,000 meters. Wouldn't that absolutely drain the ocean? The 1 kilometer difference probably doesn't make that big of a temperature change, but apparently it does in this movie. Anyway, back to the movie. The writer meets Glasses, and Glasses actually knows the writer's book. He is one of the 400 people who bought it? Of course he is. They briefly discuss the book, and then Glasses sends him away because the area is unstable. After that, Glasses talks to his friend in India, and they have confirmed the numbers mentioned earlier. Earth is really falling apart faster than expected. The Earth's crust is destabilizing, and they need to start evacuating Yellowstone. Glasses realizes he was wrong and tells the Indian guy to start packing, and they need to wait for a helicopter to pick them up. But if I remember anything from this movie, they definitely won't get picked up. He promises the child that they're going on a big ship, leaving the interpretation open for the kind of ship it's supposed to be. The mysterious man approaches them and asks what happened inside, but they don't pay too much attention to him. Later we see Glasses evacuating Yellowstone and calling Fat Guy, telling him that they need to start moving now, otherwise it will be too late. On the other side, the kids are laying in a tent, and he's only looking at his laptop to check out Yellowstone on Google Maps. He brings them to bed and steals his son's phone, looking at it and seeing a message to his stepdad, telling him that it's just awful here. He develops short-time depression because his son is pretending he doesn't love his dad. While he's sitting in the car trying to write his book, he's listening to the radio again, and what a coincidence, the man parked his shredder right in front of their car. He goes up to him, asking about what he's telling on the radio, and he explains what he knows, which is just that the world is going to end, but he can't figure out everything, and they need to go fast, and that he has a map to where they are building the ships, and the writer leaves. The next day we see the wife and her new boyfriend making out in the supermarket, but before they really got going, the whole mart rips in half, leaving them both on either side. That's kinda good foreshadowing on what's going to happen to them. The writer's about to buy mosquito spray when the mother calls to tell them that they have to come back, because they are not safe where they are. I don't know. I mean, Yellowstone is not the safest place on Earth, but telling your children to come back to the place where the Earth starts to rip apart is not the smartest move, but what do I know? Fat Guy talks to the president, informing him that they can only save a certain number of people, but they need to start boarding now to ensure their safety. The president has to convince the leaders of the other nations to do the same, so Glasses explains what's happening based on the data they collected in India 2 years ago. They only have 2 to 3 days left until everything falls apart. The movie cuts to a new character, some Russian guy at a random fighting event. He got a message to start the boarding. Do I have to go in depth in how he unlocks his phone? A fingerprint unlock on a random phone display? I can't remember the phones in 2012, but that seems a bit far-fetched. In the morning, the dad brings the kids home and has to go to work. It turns out he works for the Russian guy, driving his kids around. He picks them up and brings them to a small airport. He talks to a pilot, gives him his watch to wait for them and fly them somewhere safe. The dad calls the mom and tells her that he will pick them up in a few minutes to fly away in a plane because it's not safe where they are, but they won't listen. The real earthquake starts and the whole family takes cover under the table, thinking it's the safest spot. It seems logical, but consider what the dad just told them, it seems stupid. The dad arrives at their house, goes inside and gets them to follow him outside into the car. It's pretty simple from this point onwards. They just drive to the airport, surviving all kinds of things they shouldn't have survived, but somehow they did. It's the first time we really see CGI in this movie. I mean, look at this. And people are saying we faked the moon landing in 1969. They make it to the airport, but the pilot is dead. But fortunately, the rich stepdad has started his pilot lessons a few weeks back, What a lucky guy. So they take off, and for whatever reason they just stay at ground level and are not rising. Not only are they not rising and flying high, at first they're even dropping and flying under the ground level. Do they want to see the destruction or death happening all over the place? Or do they want to have all these close calls? I don't get it. Yeah, well, the whole city gets destroyed and goes underwater while they fly away. They fly to Yellowstone to talk to the crazy guy for his map. While being there, they fuel up the plane and the dead with his daughter looking for the man in his own camper. They find him and he tells them where it is and drive away back to plane. Crazy guy didn't want to come because he wanted to see the super volcano explode with his own eyes. So they get back to the runway, but he hasn't looked for the map yet. So after his daughter ran to the plane, he stayed to look for it and eventually found it. Just looking at how the camper hangs there is no way the gravity wouldn't have pulled that thing down. But no, movie science.
Imagination.
The camper can hang there vertically and not fall down before the dead gets out. So stupid. Obviously he gets out, runs to the plane and gets in. He unfolds the map and turns out they need to fly to China. So the only logical thing they can do is to fly to Vegas because they need a bigger plane. Still doesn't really make sense to me. Las Vegas was on their way to Yellowstone, so they just went backwards. While they fly, they resort to Glasses and Fat Guy watching the news all over the world that the world is really falling apart and that the people are fighting to survive. Back to the family in the plane. They land in Vegas and meet the Russian guy and his family there. Their plane is stuck due to the earthquake, but there's another plane they can use, the Antonov. Yeah, sure, why not? The Russian guy would have been gone if he had the second pilot, but luckily the doctor can fly like a champ. While they take off, a part of the runway breaks and falls off, so the Antonov doesn't have enough length to take off. So they drop, but eventually make it out with an angle that is probably not possible with that plane. But what do I know? I can't even fly a plane. We see some monks chilling on the top of a mountain, talking about whatever, and the old one is giving the younger one the keys to his car, so he can save the family. No, it's just law time, but I will skip because I don't care enough. We cut to the White House, where we see the president who stayed behind to be with his civilians and try to support them. But an earthquake hits them and the Washington Monument gets destroyed and falls over. Cutting to the Air Force One, assuming the president is dead and a few other important people are dead, they tell us that the fat guy is in charge for everything now. After a bit more lore and side information, the boat of the father of Glasses gets hit with a really big wave because all the earthquakes around the world causing the cruise ship to flip over. Back to the White House, the president faces the same fate, getting killed by a big wave carrying an aircraft carrier. Back to more lore, the plane is running out of fuel and they have to make an emergency landing. The family has a heartfelt moment and then the stepdad comes down and uses the most overused line in all of filmmaking history. You have to see this. So instead of landing in the ocean, they crash land on some snowy mountain in China. The stepdad said they lost their landing gear in Las Vegas. What I get. They don't have the two wheels at the front here, but they only hit the back tires on the Eiffel Tower there. So what happens? Because the back wheels are still there when they land in China. In the end, it doesn't even matter because they do crash landing on the snowy mountain, while they use the cars to get out at the end of the plane to at least have a bit of protection. The stepdad makes it to the car and the other pilot, the Russian guy, keeps the plane straight or whatever he does. I don't really understand it. So yeah, anyway, he doesn't make it out of the plane before it falls to its doom and explodes. Fortunately, the Chinese people are on their way to bring animals to the big ship right the second they get out of the car and get spotted by them. But only the Russian guy gets picked up, cause he has a boarding pass, but not his Jeff, cause he had something with the pilot. The next morning we cut to Glasses and they tell us that they lost one ship. They show us that the roof collapses. I'm not sure, but that doesn't look that bad. It's probably hard to get that away in a few hours remaining, but shouldn't be that bad that you consider that a loss. While the family walks away from the burning plane, they see a car in the distance, and it's the monk with his family, and they pick him up. We get to see the Indian guy with his family and a whole lot of other people just walking with their belongings and the tsunami warning in the background. Who triggered the alarm? Did it go off by itself, or did somebody really stay behind and triggered it? Well, doesn't matter. They see a wave is coming towards them that reaches the clouds, and the Indian guy calls his Glasses and tells him what is happening right now. He rushes to the bridge and tells the fat guy what's happening and that an even bigger wave is coming. So they adjust the timer and it's only about 30 minutes left before they all die. It would have been a perfect movie if they really took the 28 minutes until the wave hit, but 28 minutes from now they're on their way to Mount Everest. Back to the family. They arrive at the destinations where one of the workers is waiting for them and knows a secret passage into the ship. At first he hesitates, but takes them with him anyway because his mother convinced him. So after they adjust the timer and the fat guy holds a speech, they start moving the ships out and letting all the others just stay behind to die. While the family makes their way into the ship, the Russian woman calls a dog. And what the fuck is this? Back we go to the bridge, where they see live footage of all the people jumping off the edge because they get pushed off, and Glasses holds a speech to open the gates for all the others they made it here. to come inside, so they can save more of the human race. All the nations accept it, only the fat guy who only thinks about himself and wants the gates stay closed. While they open the gates, the movie cuts back to the family, and they are apparently in the part of the boat that opens and closes the gate. The worker didn't expect that. They open the gates again and it all goes wrong. Except it gets crushed like in these satisfying videos, and the drill the worker used gets stuck in the gears, and the worker also injures his leg. Back to the old monk. He meditates or sleep, who knows, and he sees the big ass wave coming and just completely chilled, gets up and uses the huge bell, but he gets completely flushed away anyway. Back to the ships. They close the gates because they got them all, but the Russian guy was still under the gate door with his kids. While one makes it right away, the other one is too slow and he decides to throw his kid, but cause it's so fat, he falls to his death and just explodes like a blueberry. So because of the accident with the worker, they cannot close the gate because the drill is still stuck in the gears. And the captain tells us their completely stupid build idea. You cannot start the engines while the door isn't closed. Who the fuck thought it was a good idea to implement that? But I guess they had to do it because it's movie relevant. Glasses and the president's daughter go check on the family stuck in the hydraulics, trying to save them. And we see the wave hitting the ship. It's been about 60 minutes since they announced the impact. And you're telling me that the family did all that in only 28 minutes? That's stupid. Back to the family, where they all get trapped in the corridor except the daughter and the dog. The Russian girl gets trapped by herself, so you just know she's just dead. So why does the Russian guy really die? I mean, the water comes on the side where the family is. Shouldn't it rise more on this side other than the one that's completely closed up? Shouldn't be the daughter or the family the most in danger and not the Russian guy in the middle? I don't care. Glasses tells him that they can't close the gate cause something is blocking it, and the dad does investigate. Finds the drill and tries to yank it out. The son followed, telling the dad about the rest of the cable. They get it out after a while, and the son swims to the family. The dad takes his sweet time, holding his breath for about 3 minutes before he gets up. I don't even want to talk about that all being salt water, and he's keeping his eyes open the whole time. While that all happened, the boat got thrown out of the anchors that were holding it in place, and it was drifting towards Mount Everest. Cause they couldn't turn on the engines, they would crash and die, but they obviously make it. 27 days later, they finally go outside, breathe air and touch grass. And they discover that Africa was not affected by the earthquakes and is habitable. They decide to head there, and the movie ends with the daughter telling the dad that she doesn't pee herself anymore. This movie gets 3 Noahs out of 9 arcs.